What's up everybody? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure review, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Marvel Legends War Machine. And I'm so pumped up about this figure because it's been such a long time since we've gotten a good comic book War Machine. They put out a bunch of movie War Machines that are really good. A bunch of different companies have tackled War Machine at this point, but not a whole lot of companies have done comic book versions of the character. I don't think we've seen one since I want to say maybe like the Toy Biz one that came out back in the day. That's like the last classic kind of inspired War Machine that I could remember. So it's so cool to finally get a good classic comic War Machine in 6-inch form. Hasbro did a really nice 3 3/4 inch, but this is the first time that they've tackled a classic comic War Machine. So it's really exciting stuff, but let's go ahead and get into it. Actually, before we get into it, let me give a huge shout out to E. Rivera for finding this figure and sending it to me. He found it at his local Target. He already has a review up for it, so be sure to check that out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So be sure to go ahead and show him some love. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate you looking out for me. But yeah, now let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with the packaging, you are able to see the figure right here, and you can see all the accessories that he comes with. This figure is considered like a deluxe Marvel Legends figure, so it's a little bit more expensive. It's around $30, but it comes with all kinds of good stuff. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm perfectly fine paying $30 for a well done 6-inch figure with a bunch of good accessories. I mean, I really hope that Hasbro starts doing this more often, but I'm loving what we're seeing here so far. There's a lot of really great stuff, but I like how you could see it all right here. Up in front, we have a nice little War Machine graphic. On the side, we get some awesome looking War Machine artwork. And then on the back, we get a look at the figure showing off all the blast effects and his unmasked head. And then the blast off effects that plug into the bottom of his feet. Those look really good. And then of course here we have the very descriptive character biography. It pretty much just says James Rhodes is War Machine. So there you go. On this side we have some more art. But enough about the box. Let's go ahead and rip this figure out and take a look. Alright, so here we have War Machine right out of the packaging. And I went ahead and put on a couple of his blast effects so you could see how cool that stuff looks. But man, Hasbro is absolutely killing it this year. And they continue to impress me with some of the stuff that they're doing on their recent releases. War Machine has a bunch of cool stuff that I haven't seen on Hasbro figures before, and it's very impressive. And you know, it's like this year, that seems to be like the theme of Hasbro, you know, just to come out and impress us. Even though they've been giving us Marvel Legends for a long time, and a lot of us are very familiar with the traits and the characteristics of a Marvel Legends figure, this year they've come along and kind of like shattered that and just given us a bunch of really cool new stuff. And not just with Marvel Legends, they've been doing it with the G.I. Joe figures, with the Power Ranger stuff, even the Transformer stuff. Like there's a bunch of new technology that they're implementing into all these figures, and they're just doing a great job. But this War Machine is like a perfect example of how good that stuff could get. And I'm so happy to see all this new stuff going on a character that's been in desperate need of a good comic book representation, because man, I just love that they did it right. There's nothing that jumps out to me on this figure that I wish was different. I'm sure after looking at it closely and thinking about it and letting the hype of just opening the figure die down just a little bit, maybe I could find some flaws, but right out of the box, I was like, man, I'm really, really loving this thing. But just check them out. Look at all those awesome blast effects. All that stuff looks really, really good. And we'll take a close look at everything here in just a second, but I just want to give you guys an overview of how cool this figure looks. And then taking a closer look at the details, starting off with the guns. Check this thing out. This looks really, really nice. There's not a whole lot of paint detail on there, but the sculpting work is very well done. You could see there's a lot of good details in there and stuff, but I do wish that they added a little bit of shading just to make it look a little bit more realistic. But it definitely works and it looks good. And like I said, there's a lot of nice sculpting work on there. It's a little hard to see because it's just plain black plastic, you know, but I think it looks pretty nice. Right there's the front. You've got the little missile holes, I guess you could call them. But yeah, that all looks really good. And then over here we have the shoulder-mounted minigun. Once again, there's a lot of really nice detail in there. Look at that. But there's just not a whole lot of paint to bring out all this really nice-looking detail, you know. A little bit of paint shading would have went a long way on this figure because they went all out on the sculpt. Look at all that. And on this side, you've got the little like red scope kind of deal. So yeah, that looks good. Really nice shoulder-mounted minigun. And then now for the head sculpt. This is a really good looking War Machine head sculpt. Very classic. I like the faceplate. I like the mouth, the eyes. All of it looks good. Right here on the side, he's got another little like scope kind of sensor thing. And then you have like a sculpted, I guess like an earpiece, I guess you could call it. Over here too, you got room for the ear. And then we have some lines on the head, so that all looks nice. Then moving down into the torso, we've got a bunch of nice sculpted detail here. Again, not a whole lot of paintwork or anything, but you know, it looks good. I like it. Then we have the shoulders with the soft plastic shoulder pads that are really, really nice. And we'll take a look at these shoulder pads in more detail when we talk about the articulation, because I really like what they did here. And then the silver looks nice, and then look at this, bam! They've got the pinless technology thing going here, so I think this might be the first time that we've seen this, and it works out really good. But one thing I don't understand is why they do the pinless thing on the arm and then not the legs. They kind of half-assed it right there. And I think they're doing that on like the upcoming Wolverine figure. I could be wrong, but I thought I saw a picture where they were showing off his arms and then his legs were kind of in the background and you could see the pins on him. So I'm not sure why they would do it like that. Hopefully they come around and just make all the joints pinless, and that would really put Hasbro figures like to the next level. But yeah, I like what they did here with War Machine's arm, and it looks good. And then we've got the forearm cannons that look nice. We've got the Iron Man style hands with like all the lines in them and everything. Yeah, so there we go. Right here, this all looks good. Some nice sculpting work and line work. Nothing really going on the upper thighs there. But the lower legs have some sculpting work as well. Again, not a whole lot of paint shading. Some paint shading could have gone a long way on this figure. But as is, I definitely appreciate the sculpting work they put into it, because there's a lot of new sculpted parts here. So that's good, really good to see. But yeah, I really love the way this figure looks. And let's go ahead and pop on the Rhodey head. And yeah, this looks really, really good. It definitely has like a late 80s, early 90s kind of feel to it, especially with the haircut there. But yeah, I like this a lot. It really looks accurate to the way that he looked in the comics at this time. So I like the texture on the hair. The skin tone is good. The eyes look good. Man, this is a good looking head sculpt. Really well done. Nice. And aside from that really nice looking alternate head sculpt, he also comes with a bunch of really cool blast effects. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Starting off with these little guys, it looks like they're just little blasts that you could plug right into the barrels of his forearm cannons. And I think these are really cool. They're very small, but they're awesome. And it just looks like it's something that he just shot off real quick, you know. So I do like those. And they're very soft plastic and they plug into the barrels with no problem at all. And then he has these really cool little smoldering kind of smoke effects. They kind of make it look like the barrels are like cooling down or something after he shot up like a bunch of enemies, you know. But yeah, look at that. These things are cool. And I know that these aren't necessarily new, because something like this did come with the Black Widow Deadly Origins figure, but I haven't picked that one up yet. So I've been kind of missing out on these things, and I just really, really like them. You could definitely get a lot of use out of these, but they look so cool right here on War Machine. I just love them. They kind of have like a translucent look to them. They're soft plastic. They have like a smoky kind of look. So they're really dope, and they plug right into the barrels without any problem. And then we have this guy here that you could also plug into the barrel without any problem. Let's see. There we go. And it's kind of like a bullet spray effect. I like how we have the dark orange color and it kind of fades into yellow. And it plugs right into the hand with no problem, or into the forearm barrels. And then next up, we have a couple of effects for his guns on his shoulders. And speaking of the guns on the shoulders, I love the way that these things could come back like that. So if you just have them in like a neutral kind of, I don't want to say relaxed, but just like a neutral, like at ease pose, you could put those back and that looks really cool. And then you could just bring them up without any problem. And they have these little channels that they kind of travel in. And then the guns themselves are on little ball joints, so you can move them around. You could kind of tilt them. More so this one you could tilt, but yeah, those are very cool. And this one here, which is like the mini, like the shoulder mounted minigun, kind of has a little effect that just plugs right over the barrel part of the gun. And again, it's like that semi-translucent kind of look. You got the dark orange, it fades to yellow, and then it's kind of clear at the end there. But that's really cool. I like the way that it covers the barrel. Just kind of makes it look more dramatic, you know. And then the same thing could be said for this here. This one goes on this side, and it looks like you have like a big cloud of smoke right where the missiles would have come out of. Here, let's see the way, best way, there we go. You have like a cloud of smoke right here where the missiles would have come out of, and you just see them coming out all crazy, kind of spiraling, you know. And I just love that, the smoky look they gave it. And then the missiles themselves do come off for whatever reason, you know, if you feel like taking those off and getting creative and doing something different. I'm sure you could find some reason why you'd want to bring those off. So it's cool that they made that an option. Or you could just glue them down. But if you don't even want to do that, they do stay securely onto the pegs. So it's fine. And then once again, let's go ahead and throw in his spray, I guess you could call it. So look at that. Looks like he's a brat. Oops. This one does, I mean, it plugs on pretty easy, but it's kind of, you can, let's see here. Looks like this one falls off the easiest, but there we go. We're good to go. So yeah, look at that. All those blast effects. That's like totally War Machine, right? Really, really good. Yeah, I really love that. And then, last but not least, he comes with these, I guess you could call them takeoff effects that you would plug right into his feet. And these are very cool, but we have seen them before, or the Sculpt anyway. It looks like they're basically just repaints of the effects that we got with the Iron Man 2020, and that's what I have right here. As you can see, the War Machine version has like the smoky look at the bottom, so that's definitely a nice touch. And you know what? One thing I forgot to mention when I reviewed the Iron Man 2020 is that you could kind of lock these things together. Let's see, how do you do it? Somebody told me afterwards, after my review, like there's a way to lock these guys together. Oh, there we go. So you lock them together and it does a better job of holding the figure up. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool, because that was one sort of a complaint that I had with these things, is that they're very cool, but I don't know if they could support the weight of the figure. But when you do this and then plug them on there, I think you're good to go. So these are dope, and I really like the way that War Machine looks on them. So I think these were a good thing to reuse, and I like the way that they enhance them a little bit by adding a little bit of paint to them. Another cool thing about these effects is that you could take off the base pieces, and then you have these blast effects coming out of the bottom of his feet, so you could kind of make it look like he's flying. So. And now for some quick size comparisons, we have War Machine alongside the Walgreens exclusive Marvel Legends Iron Man 2020 and the Marvel Legends 80th Anniversary Iron Man. And originally, I thought this War Machine was going to be pretty much just a reuse of the 80th Anniversary Iron Man with maybe just a couple of pieces added, just like the Iron Man 2020. But it turns out, as far as I could tell, this new War Machine is pretty much all new. There are some shared parts, but not many at all, way less than I was expecting. As far as I could tell, it looks like they share the same hands and the upper thighs, and that's about it. Everything else is completely new. The torso, lower arms, lower legs, shoulders, head, obviously, all of that is completely new. So that was very good to see. And I just love seeing this classic War Machine alongside this 80th Anniversary Iron Man. I think they look great together. And then next up, we have War Machine alongside the Iron Man 2 movie War Machine, which was my favorite War Machine for a long time, but that's not the case anymore. And then on the opposite side of that, we have the Marvel Legends Endgame War Machine. And then here we have War Machine alongside the 80th Anniversary Captain America and the 80th Anniversary Thor. And then here we have him alongside the SH Figure Arts Age of Ultron Iron Man and the Sentinel Armorized Iron Man. And I really like that Sentinel Iron Man. I think it looks really cool, but it looks like he's a little too big to hang out with this War Machine. And then next up, we have him alongside the Revoltech War Machine, which is probably one of my favorite War Machines. And I like that one a lot because it reminds me of War Machine from the Dark Reign era of War Machine, and that was when it was, what was his name? Greg Pak writing the War Machine book, and it was really dope, and he was like half like robotic, and he had like a crazy amount of guns, more guns than usual, and that's kind of what that Revoltech figure reminds me of. And obviously this new one is basically just a classic War Machine, so that's cool. And then on the opposite side, we have the Mezco 112 Collective Classic Iron Man. I would love to see a Mezco War Machine. They would do an incredible job. And then last but not least, we have War Machine alongside the Marvel Legends Pizza Spider-Man and Marvel Legends Bucky Cap. So for the longest time, I was very jealous of the 3 3/4 inch line because they got this awesome War Machine and we never had one that good in 6-inch form. And I was really hoping that one day Hasbro would just kind of come along and scale this up. And I don't think they did exactly that here, but it's close enough, man. I think they're both very good representations of classic War Machine. I really love this 3 3/4 inch one. It doesn't have all that much articulation, but it's still a really great figure. The sculpting work on it is awesome. I love the colors and everything. And I like how it has that like dingy dingy, kind of beat up kind of look to it. This new War Machine doesn't necessarily have that, but you know, it has the articulation. So, you know, there's a give and take going on there. If I were to make like a top 5 War Machine figures video or something, both of these would be in there because they're such incredible representations of classic War Machine. Oh man, you know what would have been cool? If he came with another head that had red eyes. Oh, that'd be dope. I didn't even think about that until I saw it on this one. Oh man, that'd be cool. But yeah, both of these are such incredible figures. And the articulation on War Machine is pretty good. It's a pretty standard Hasbro Marvel Legends articulation setup. There's no surprises or anything like that, but I think for the most part, it works pretty well for War Machine. One thing I do wish was different is that I wish they put a diaphragm cut on him instead of the ab crunch. I think that would have been a little bit better, but that's something that I think should happen with Marvel Legends figures all across the board. That's just a joint that I prefer. But to be honest with you, the figure here doesn't suffer at all because of the ab crunch versus the torso diaphragm cut, but I just prefer the diaphragm cut to the ab crunch, so I would have liked to have seen that here. But still, the ab crunch is perfectly fine. So in general, I think the articulation is pretty good on this guy, and you could get him into any poses that you'd want War Machine to get into. So let's go ahead and take a look. First off, his head is on that new type of neck joint that we've been seeing from Hasbro a lot lately, and usually I don't like this at all, but in this case it actually works out pretty well for War Machine. You could do some nice stuff. First off, you could get his head to tilt a really good amount, so you could get those like expressive poses, so that's dope. He could look up only to about right there, which isn't horrible. It's enough to get him into like flight poses, so you know, that'll work. I mean, I wish it went up a little bit more, but as it is, it's not too bad. And then he could look down to about right there, which is pretty nice. But then his chest piece kind of gets in the way, so it is what it is, but that's okay. And then of course you have side to side. But I really like the way that you could tilt this head and just kind of move it around a lot. Look at that. That's awesome. You could do some really cool stuff with that. Like have him shooting off to the side and have his head kind of tilted. Well, that's not a good pose, huh? You know, something like that. But yeah, I really like this head setup here for War Machine. But like I said before, I usually don't like the way this neck setup works on recent Hasbro figures. But in this case, it worked out fine. I like it. And then for the torso, as I mentioned, he does have an ab crunch. And it looks like the upper torso piece is soft plastic. So like the little overlapping armor piece doesn't really restrict the articulation at all. And it kind of just moves along the lower piece, so that looks cool. And then of course he does have a waist swivel. And the way they did this War Machine figure with the belt and all the armor and everything, it kind of, like, I feel that the diaphragm cut is like a more natural moving joint when it comes to like the torsos. You could do a lot more natural looking poses. But in this case, you could achieve pretty much the same stuff because the belt on the waist like kind of covers any weird breaks that the waist swivel would usually have on an action figure. So it kind of works the same way as like a diaphragm cut, you know, in my opinion. So I think that's cool. And then for the arms, we have some really cool stuff going on. I love the way the shoulder pad is on the shoulder joint because it's like a separate piece, but it looks like it's connected on the inside of the joint. Like there's a little plastic piece that goes down into there, and it looks like it probably wraps around the peg. So it moves along with the, let me go ahead and move that. It moves along with the shoulder, like it could go all the way around, but then you could also bring his arm up and that shoulder pad just gets out of the way. Usually the shoulder pad would just be attached right here and you couldn't really get his arm to go all the way around, you know, like on similar looking figures, but here they made it work. This is something new, I think. I don't think I've seen Hasbro do something like that, so that's dope. And then you could bring his arm out to the side to about right there. Then you have upper bicep swivel. You do have a double jointed elbow, but he only gets, he gets a little bit more than 90, right? That looks good. There's no swivel at the forearm, but he does have a swivel at the wrist. Just make sure here. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have a swivel at the forearm, but he does have a swivel at the wrist and then a hinge at the wrist. It's kind of hard to move because his gun's right here. And then for the legs, look at that. That's pretty good. He could pretty much do the splits. You could kick his leg forward to about right there. You could bring it back to right there. And then he has upper thigh cut. There we go, upper thigh cut. He has double jointed knees, which are awesome. Look at that. That's really good. And then the lower leg doesn't look like there's any swivel or anything, but the feet do have the ankle pivot, and they could go forward a really nice amount, and then they could come up a decent amount. I wish they could come up a little bit more, because being limited to just right there can cause problems sometimes, but for the most part I think it's fine. But yeah, like I said, he's got good articulation for an armored character. And I would have preferred the diaphragm cut, but, you know, I'm okay without it. And you could pretty much achieve all the same type of poses. So I'm very happy with the way this figure moves. Alright, so overall, I really love this figure. I think that Hasbro did a great job with it, and they seem to be outdoing themselves more often than not these days. I'm not going to say they're perfect. They still give us a lot of repaints that I'm unhappy with, but even some of the repaints that they've done recently, I've been like absolutely in love with. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about, but yeah, man, Hasbro is just killing it, and it's so cool to see them like advance like every year. Like 2020 has been better for them in terms of product that they've been releasing than 2019 was, and I thought 2019 was phenomenal from Hasbro. So they just continue to do like a great job, and I really hope to see them continue to progress. You know, they're like, man, they're definitely killing it. But this War Machine is such a good figure, and you know, a part of me might be this excited about it because how happy I am to finally have an updated War Machine figure. So you know, you got to factor that in too. But personally, I think this is a really dope figure, and I'm so happy to have it. And it's just really cool to see how far Hasbro has come, because I remember I was one of the Hasbro bashers back in the day. They used to put out a bunch of garbage, but now, you know, all these years later, they're putting out some of the best figures that you could buy, especially for the price. And speaking of the price, like I said before, this figure is like a deluxe figure, which means it costs a little bit more, but it comes with a bunch of accessories. Let me know what you guys think of that whole idea. I like it a lot, to be honest with you. I don't mind paying a couple extra dollars if there's enough things in the box to make it worth it. In this case, I think that is exactly what happened. I'm totally satisfied with all those blast effects and everything, the new pinless technology, the dedicated sculpt. There's enough here to make me feel like the $30 I spent on it, or 35, or you know, 30, somewhere between 30 and 35 is definitely worth it. I'm extremely satisfied with this figure, and I'm very happy with it. But anyways, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Also, please be sure to hit the bell notification so that you're notified whenever I go live. I'm having a bunch of fun doing those live videos, so I want to try to get as many people there as possible. So hit the bell notification so YouTube will let you know whenever I go live. But anyways, that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.